Again on America's Forum, I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bachman, alongside with Ed Berliner as well. We'll have Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen to join us in a second. But first, let's check in on the situation in Ukraine right now. Secretary of State John Kerry says that energy should not be used as a political weapon in the Ukrainian crisis, but it is. Russia sharply hiked the price of natural gas to Ukraine and threatened to reclaim billions in previous discounts, ratcheting up the situation for Ukraine's cash-strapped government. Kerry spoke alongside an EU official at an energy summit in Brussels and said that they are working with Ukraine on alternatives to Russia for their natural gas supply.
It really boils down to this. No nation should use energy to stymie a people's aspirations.
Well, he said the U.S. is working closely to help Ukraine bring in natural gas in through Poland and Hungary and develop a route through Slovakia. Joining us right now to discuss the situation in Ukraine, and we'll talk about Venezuela as well, and a new Iranian ambassador, is Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. It's great to have you with us.
Hey, thank you so very much for having me on. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Well, Ileana, it's always good to hear from you and your expertise.
JD, my colleague.
Going
I love
back.
I love you, my friend.
You're the greatest, Ileana. Let's talk about the here and now, as much as I'd love to reminisce with you, specifically what's going on in the Ukraine. Now, this move by Russia to hike natural gas prices, is it cutting the Ukraine off at its knees? What happens in that situation for the Ukrainian government already under severe financial distress?
Well, this is yet another example of Putin looking at President Obama's foreign policy and making the smart calculation that Putin can do whatever he wants without fear that the White House will react with anything more than empty threats. And we've seen this time and time again, so much so that the president's lead from behind policy has not only eroded our influence, damaged our credibility around the world, but it has hurt our relations with other countries, and it has certainly shown tyrants like Putin, Assad, Maduro in Venezuela, Kim Jong-un, Khamenei, and the Castros, that the U.S. lacks the courage of its convictions. For sure, Putin is not going to stop with just annexing Crimea. The Obama administration has misguidedly dismissed Putin and his provocations as those of a weakened Russia acting out. And it's such an astonishingly dangerous view to take, one that could seriously harm our U.S. national security interests if we continue to downplay these threats. Obama's lack of leadership and strength has shown that the umbrella of U.S. security that so many have relied on is neither as wide nor is it as durable as they once thought.
Representative Ros-Lehtinen and Ed Berliner here. It's been a long time since I had a chance to talk with you many years ago. Very well. Thank you very much. Hope the family is well, as always.
Everybody's good.
Excellent. Here's a question that I get asked an awful lot from people when it comes down to the Ukraine. We have a terribly corrupt government, and they are currently, according to reports, there are caseloads and carloads and busloads of American MREs that are being sold on the black market. Everything we send there seems to wind up being sold for a couple of extra bucks to somebody. So I think the American public wants to know, why are we going to put more money into a country that is so corrupt, and we may just lose all this money again for no reason? We're not dealing with a government that seems to know, quite frankly, what it's doing or how it wants to work within the international community. It's a waste of money to many people.
That is a problem that we've seen time and time again throughout the world when we've given this assistance, and it never seems to get to the right places. We just came back from a weekend visit to Haiti, and here's a great country that suffered a terrible earthquake 4 years ago, and I commissioned a GAO report on how U.S. funds were used, and we saw it was just a legacy of misused funds and misplaced priorities, and we never seem to get it right when it comes to helping the good guys and making sure that there's transparency and accountability, and that folks know, which is a very generous country, the United States, there's no place like it, but people want to know that what they're doing and what we're giving is going to be used in the right way.
Okay, there's the point. How do we get it right this time?
Well, we're always just wishing and hoping and praying, and that's never the right solution. Before we reach out and give money, like Obama's wanted to do, for example, giving arms in Syria, when we don't know where those arms are going to end up. And and giving help to people who really need another type of help. What they want is they need to shore up democracy in Ukraine. We need to make sure that they have elections that are free and fair. You can't put a price tag on that. You don't really need. They don't not looking for a handout. And the most important message that we're sending to the world with our handling of Ukraine is the message that it sends to thugs like Rouhani and Khamenei, the supreme leader.
And Congresswoman, if I could jump in here real quickly, I want to ask you about the message it sends to Nicolas Maduro. I want to get to the topic of Venezuela before we run out of time. We only got about 2 minutes left here real quickly. The protests continue there. The news we're reporting today is that Maduro is having people sign up for these ID cards, part of more food rationing in there. We're trying to keep this story in the news. What is going on in Venezuela? And what is going to happen to Maduro, and can democracy take root there if he is going to be ousted from office?
Well, we're hopeful that it will. There have been over 30 people killed as a result of Maduro's violent attempts to suppress dissent. Opposition leaders like Leopoldo Lopez, he has been in military prison for over a month. Maria Corina Machado is a member of the national legislature. She was stripped of her seat last week. Why? Because she dared to come to the United States and try to speak at the OAS, a totally useless, inept body that denied her the right to speak. And for that, they stripped her of her immunity. Soon she will be charged. What is the administration doing on Venezuela? Nothing. What is it saying on Venezuela? Nothing. The administration has repeatedly said that we need to work with the OAS. The OAS is a useless body. It's like talking to the UN. So we've had 5
Speaking
years
of the
of
UN,
failed foreign policy.
It's interesting,
and
Ileana.
it's not going to work.
Let me jump in. We have about a minute left, and I need your take on this. Apparently, the Iranians want to send to the United Nations someone who was involved in the hostage takeover there at that embassy in Tehran back in the late 70s. Can the U.S. stop it? What have you been saying in terms of the Iranians and this possible UN envoy who was part of the hostage crisis?
Well, as chairman of the Middle East and North Africa subcommittee, we've reached out to our members. We're sending a communication to John Kerry saying that U.S. has the authority to not accept this ambassador as the permanent representative of Iran at the UN. We've got the Article 5, Section 15 of the UN headquarters agreement. We cannot allow this terrorist to have a seat at the UN. The inmates are running the asylum over there.
Well, Ileana, we appreciate your insights and your actions there on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thanks very much for spending some time with us.
Thanks, guys. Have me on again, please.
You bet we will. Thanks, Ileana.
Okay, more about the NSA spying coming up. Were they spying on ordinary Americans? And how do they miss the crisis in Ukraine? We'll take a look at that with Liz Peek right after the break. And of course, you can always reach out to us on social media. Find our contact info right here on the